Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
I'm Count Jackula.
Today we're talking about The Wolfman, or more precisely, just Wolfman, which is a remake of the classic Universal monster movie Wolfman. Well, that one was The Wolfman, from writer-director
Leigh Whannell,
who you may know as the writer and director of Upgrade and The Invisible Man. This movie, much like The Invisible Man, could be classified as more of a reimagining than a straight-up remake, because he basically rebuilt the concept from the ground up for this movie.
Yeah. But there is lycanthropy that happens.
There is lycanthropy, 100%. It's his own version of lycanthropy. It doesn't really follow many of the rules set forth in the original movie, but it's also its own universe, so it makes sense. Overall, I thought this movie was a really good movie. I don't think it's necessarily as
revolutionary
as The Invisible Man was.
No.
The Invisible Man took the concept of The Invisible Man, which was already about a guy who was kind of like abusing his own power and going mad with that power, took that concept and made a very Me Too era horror film out of it.
Yeah.
Blew me away when I saw it.
Yeah.
This movie didn't blow me away to the extent that The Invisible Man did, but it is a really solid creature feature. It tries to do a similar thing that The Invisible Man did, except instead of being about like domestic abuse from the perspective of like a woman in the relationship with a man, this is about domestic abuse from the perspective of a parent and a child. Both perspectives, to be honest, because the parent in question was once a child who experienced some form of abuse, more mental than physical, but it's still there.
Much more emotional. Yeah.
And so this movie is basically about the scars we leave behind on our children and our desperate attempts to not leave those scars and kind of leaving them anyway.
Yeah. Our main character, his dad is kind of a crazy survivalist.
Oh yeah, he's definitely one of those, got like a survival bunker in the middle of fucking Oregon, hides in the woods, does not like to talk to other people except through like a CV radio.
Yeah, but he's also on the hunt for this elusive wolfman that lives in the woods.
It's a wolfman, it's a yeti, it's a fucking who knows, it's some sort of creature in the woods.
Yeah.
That he is on the hunt for, and that he has a near-death encounter with it, with his child, and this kind of makes him obsessed with it for the rest of his life. Yeah. And I do mean the rest of his life, because he basically disappears, which is what leads to the plot of this movie, where the main character inherits his house and decides to take his family to that house as basically a way to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and to kind of get back to what's important with their family, because
the family's kind of fraying at the edges.
Yeah, they're all kind of being pulled in different directions, and they want to get back together and get back to their roots. So he goes back to his roots.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, along the way to getting back to his roots, they're attacked by a werewolf. And that werewolf bites him / scratches him, and he ends up being infected with lycanthropy and slowly transforms over the course of this movie.
Yeah.
Now that's everything I can tell you without going into the spoiler territory in the last half.
Yeah. The big thing that you might want to be aware of is that he does not undergo the full classic werewolf transformation. He doesn't have a wolf head or anything. It's much closer to the Lon Chaney, hairy guy.
Looks more like a really hairy man with some malformations, almost like mongoloidizations happening with his facial features.
You described it as Wolfman a la Brundlefly.
Yeah. In fact, the transformation itself is more like Brundlefly too.
Yeah, because it takes the majority of the movie.
Most werewolf movies, the full moon hits and you'll have a transformation sequence, right? You'll have the American Werewolf in London one. There's also one in The Howling. This movie doesn't do that. Once he is infected with the lycanthropy, he is going to turn, and he's going to permanently turn. There is no going back.
Yeah, he doesn't go back.
There is no full moon involved in this werewolf transformation. It's just you're infected, you will turn. And he slowly turns over the course of the movie, kind of like the Brundlefly.
Yeah.
So you start off with one transformation, and then it gets progressively worse and worse until by the end, he's just a full-on monster.
It reminds me a lot of the werewolf variants, like the Rougarou or, stuff like that.
Because it's set in Oregon, I kept thinking of Yetis.
Yeti or Sasquatch.
Absolutely. If this wasn't a Wolfman remake, a character would have called it a Sasquatch at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
But because it's a Wolfman remake, they don't want to evoke a different monster, right?
Right.
It's not my favorite werewolf design, but in the context of this movie, it works perfectly.
Yeah, it works really well.
Best parts of this movie, in my opinion, are the stylistic choices with the werewolf transformation, because they don't just go into like the physical transformation.
Yeah,
they go into the psychological transformation that takes place.
Yeah, but probably my favorite is when he starts to realize he can't understand what people are saying anymore.
Yeah, he's like talking to his family and they're just standing there not understanding a thing he's saying because he's no longer using words.
Yeah, he's talking to them and we see their thing and he's just like,
yeah, he thinks he's using words, but he's not. And then when they try to talk to him, it just sounds like gibberish.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, his sensory overload that happens as he's transforming is depicted with this highly stylized, like high contrast.
Yeah.
With like flickering colors and like loud sound effects. Like it's very visceral. You'll have like the normal modern horror movie lighting where everything's really dark and it's hard to see. And then it'll show his vision where it's all like bright and vibrant and colorful and like oversaturated.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is actually a very small one, and it's one in which he first realizes something weird's going on with himself when he thinks he hears like something scurrying on the roof. So he like goes upstairs and goes to check it out, only to find it's just a spider crawling on the wall.
Yeah.
But to him, it sounds like a giant monster that's making loud steps because his sensory like abilities have enhanced so much, it's overwhelming. And so I really like that. The script in general has a lot of really good setups and payoffs.
Yeah, it's very much like The Invisible Man that way.
100%. Things that are said at the beginning of the movie become important by the end of the movie. It's very straightforward in that way, actually.
Yeah, there are twists and turns, but they're twists and turns in the way of a roller coaster, as opposed to the Hitchcockian, oh my God!
There is a big reveal towards the end, but we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But I guarantee while you're watching the movie, you'll probably figure it out before it's revealed.
Yeah, it's not too hard to figure out.
I pretty much suspected it like from the word go, like before they even left their house, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
like, oh my God, this thing. Oh, I wonder what could have happened,
Yeah.
you know?
I love the actor that plays the dad, not the dad's dad, but the dad himself.
Yeah, the main character.
Yeah. I love him because he's got like the perfect puppy dog eyes before he even transforms.
Yeah.
So like his eyes are perfect for conveying both his concerns before he turns into a monster, but then also he has like the perfect please kill me expressions when he is the monster. Take me out back, old yeller me.
Yeah, old yeller that shit. Ba-boom.
So yeah, I thought this was a gnarly creature feature with some really good body horror, and I thought the overall theme came together very well, even if it wasn't as revolutionary as The Invisible Man. If you missed it in theaters, given everything that's happening in the world right now, I forgive you, but I definitely recommend checking it out when it hits streaming and seeing for yourself that this movie is actually a lot better than a lot of people anticipated. And so with that said, let us move on to the spoilers. There's only one real spoiler in this movie, and it's also the thing that I guarantee everyone's going to figure out before it's revealed, and that's the fact that the werewolf that attacks them before they reach the dad's house is the dad.
The dad, yeah.
That whatever mission he had to hunt this thing caused him to be turned into one by the end of it.
Yep.
And that's why he went missing instead of them finding a dead body.
Yep, that's pretty much it. That's twist. I wouldn't even say it was much of a twist.
It's not really much of a twist.
Yeah.
It's kind of expected. Like before they left their house, when I knew where they were going, I was like, okay,
he turned into a werewolf.
He turned into a werewolf. And given the overall theming of the movie, it would make sense because he's the dad that scarred the son who's worried about scarring his daughter, and the cycle continues. I do want to say, now that we're in the spoiler section, I really love, it's very stupid and on the nose, but I really loved the whole, like, the conversation he had about going to his dad's and how much he loved, like, the scenery.
Oh, yeah.
And how just looking at the landscape, like, he would just be filled with this overwhelming feeling that everything's going to be okay.
Well, it's kind of funny because, like, you've got this werewolf movie, right? And you have these two moments in the beginning and right at the end where it's like, come to Oregon.
Yeah. How much did Oregon pay for this? For this tourist ad.
Come to Oregon, you might get killed by a werewolf.
But I like that at the end of the movie, after they've survived the werewolf and they had to put the dad down, spoilers, they walk on to the field and look out into the scenery and have that final calm.
Yeah.
That thing he said, like, it's all going to be okay.
It's all going to be okay when you see this.
The daughter's probably going to have some shit she's going to have to deal with in therapy after all this. Hopefully she actually will, unlike the dad who never bothered.
Yeah. But, you get the feeling that this is going to be, like, somewhat more okay because she's getting some closure at a much younger moment in her life.
Yeah, the one positive thing you can say about the entire experience is that it brought her and her mom together who were separating. Like, they were falling apart back in the city.
Yeah.
Because she was always so focused on her job, she never really got to spend the time with her daughter that she should.
Yeah.
So after this, there's no way she's leaving that daughter out of her sight. Anytime soon.
Yeah.
This isn't a high body count movie. There's like one person who's killed that isn't actually a werewolf.
Yeah.
And that is the random neighbor of the dad who helps them find the dad's house. Well, tries to help him, but dies along the way thanks to the werewolf.
Yeah. Look, I know it's like we're out in the middle of the woods. Everyone's acting weird. The guy acts weird. But like the thing I kind of liked about the guy who tries to help them is he's not actually particularly threatening. He's just been in the woods too long.
He's also not like a bad person.
No, he's not bad.
This movie's not very judgmental about him living out in the woods. It's just there's an uncomfortable disconnect between him and those people.
Right.
Which, funny enough, he expresses himself when he's talking to them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like he's like, oh, I don't really know how to, like, I haven't talked to people in a long time. Well, yeah, like you've been sitting out in that deer blind with a gun so long to the point that you don't realize you holding a gun is like, whoa.
Yeah.
What you got that for?
Approaching a car with a gun is an inherently threatening thing.
Yeah,
if you're from the city.
Even if you're not pointing at it.
Yeah.
It's just.
But the other thing I like is that there's like this underlying subtext of that whole scene of like, yes, you actually have won at life even if you don't feel like you have, because this guy is who you would have been.
Yes.
Had you stayed with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd have been out here all alone.
Yeah.
Probably not what you wanted.
Had you not decided to tell your dad to fuck off, you never would have gone and started this family that you love so much.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had this lovely daughter that you adore and want to protect at all costs.
Yeah. And if it hadn't been for the fact that werewolf, things probably would have been okay.
He did get a chance to protect her, though, when he rips the throat out of his own dad, who's a werewolf at the time.
Yeah.
Right before he becomes the new threat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great, like, classic, like, horror movie tension scenes in this movie. I really like the one where they climb onto the greenhouse to get away from the werewolf.
Yes.
And then the werewolf is underneath the greenhouse. And you gotta understand, this is one of those greenhouses where it's made of tarp.
Yeah. So, like, the werewolf is, like, jumping up and, like, slashing it open, and they're, like, falling through.
It's blurry see-through tarp, so you could see the werewolf in blurry form, like, jumping up and trying to claw at it. And they're on top, just trying desperately to stay on top, while the thing gets clawed more and more until finally, like, the daughter almost falls through. It's a great scene. And there's a lot of great tension moments like that. I really like the scene in the barn where they're hiding in the darkness.
They're trying to hide from him, not realizing how close he is.
And then it shows you his vision and where he is, and he's like right in front of them, and he could see them clearly, but they can't see him worth a shit.
Oh, yeah.
Only to reveal when he steps forward that they set up a bear trap underneath him. It's just
it was really clever. You know?
It was really well done. It was a perfect cat and mouse scene, complete with a mouse trap.
Yeah.
That goes off on the cat.
Yeah.
It's good shit. Tom and Jerry without humor.
Yeah. Oh, and the way he starts gnawing his limbs off.
Oh, man.
Whoa.
When he starts becoming more and more like an animal, that is so perfectly handled.
Yeah.
Because that, like, moment when she realizes that his arm that she bandaged up earlier, which is where the werewolf scratched him, is starting to bleed again. And so she unravels it to look at it, and it's like, it's just flesh and bone.
Yeah, just totally infected.
And then all of a sudden, he leaps back, crouches down, and starts gnawing at it like a dog. Like a dog whose leg is wounded and is trying to gnaw it off so he can keep going.
Yeah, yeah. And then when he gets his, like, foot caught in the bear trap, like, he gnaws his own foot off.
Absolutely, absolutely. You really got the feeling that his animal instincts were kicking in a way that most werewolf movies don't really explore on that level.
No, because usually the werewolf is still somewhat intelligent.
It's usually somewhat intelligent, or it's such a giant puppet that the idea of having like a scene where it just gnaws off its own leg.
Yeah, it would probably look a little ridiculous.
It'd look a little ridiculous or be overcomplicated to achieve. So it was really cool that someone thought of that in the context of this. And of course, the guy who came up with the scene where the guy has to saw his own leg off, and Saw is the one who did it.
Yeah. He's a little obsessed with people, like, severing their own limbs.
I have a feeling it's probably like a thing for him.
Yeah.
It's like horror directors tend to make movies about the things that affect them. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, the movie is currently available in theaters. Go check it out for yourself. If not, it will probably be on streaming within a month. So, hey, go check it out then.
You can find me here on YouTube, where I stream every weeknight between the hours of 7 and whenever I feel like it. We usually go for at least 2 hours. Sometimes we go for more. And I'd love to see you there. You can come in. You can ask me all sorts of questions. You can bother me. You can send me a donation on that super chat, which I'd very much appreciate. How about you?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on various social media platforms. But these days, I primarily use this site and Blue Sky. So go follow me on Blue Sky, and obviously like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag gnaw your own leg off. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure you can fit it in there. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.